This is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. So in this video, I'm going to share with you a player and a card that I first came across by watching a video of Ryan Nolan. And I wasn't aware of this gentleman at all until I saw him collect a few of his cards and kind of show me about cricket and soccer. So Ryan, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it because it has been one hell of a awesome ride. So the player in particular is this gentleman right here, and it is Charles Burgess or C.B. Fry, and he was born on April 25th, 1972, and he passed away on September 7th, 1956. He's really an interesting person, not just as a player, but as a politician and a writer as well. And he wasn't a professional at all during his cricket career, which was from 1892 to 1922. And being an amateur, it meant that he couldn't really profit off the game itself. So what he did was he made his money through writing, and he wrote several books. In fact, he also went to Oxford University, and he's a very, very intelligent person, which is really unusual at the time because, just not a gifted athlete. And in fact, he's really well known as one of the most gifted athletes to come out of Britain. And this is really kind of an unusual combination to be highly intelligent and a gifted athlete. His writings are really interesting as well, and his thoughts, especially just prior to and during World War II and then afterwards. There is a few drawbacks here, but his abilities on the cricket field led a lot of people to believe that he was a very arrogant person. And for me personally, that is a major turnoff. I do not like arrogant people at all, and I will not do business with them at all. I could say that I'm a really great artist and be arrogant about it, but I know that I'm not. And there has got to be some sense of humility in whatever you do. And apparently, a lot of people have said that he didn't have an ounce of humility with him, and that turned off a lot of people. He's also cocky as well. He could actually back it up because he was such a great cricketer and a soccer player as well. And he also excelled at tennis. He was also the captain of his cricket team. During his captaincy, England never lost a test match. I couldn't find a whole lot of articles during his time. So I found this to be really interesting. On one hand, people are saying he's the greatest of all time. On the other hand, I don't have a whole lot to prove that he actually was. I'm just going on speculation here that he actually was who he said he was. Now, the problem here is that he's actually kind of well known for exaggerating a lot of things that he said about himself. Some people kind of build themselves up to be something that they're not, and it's caught on by other people, and then the myth becomes reality. And I think that may be the case here, but again, we do have statistics for his cricket career, and they actually are really quite impressive. He is only second to Don Bradman in a lot of areas of cricket, and that actually says something. He also has 13 years of 100s, and what that is, it's a hundred or a century is when you score 100 runs per innings, and he's got six consecutive as well, which is really impressive. Don Bradman actually has the highest batting average as well. Um, and so I've talked about Don Bradman, and he's like the Babe Ruth of the sport. And if that's the case, CB Fry is just right below him, in fact. But again, CB Fry is not in the Hall of Fame, and I actually kind of wondered why, because he has the years, and he is very influential to his team and to the sport. I want to say, and I can't say this conclusively, there's a problem with him being associated with the Nazi regime. And he wasn't a Nazi, but at the time he was a member or associated with the British Union of Fascists. And he's got a kind of a cozy relationship with Adolf Hitler personally and with Hitler's foreign minister, Joachim von Ribbentrop. At the time, Fry was meeting with both of these gentlemen, and he made some really unusual statements, or what are considered unusual even for today. This was back in the late 1930s. Basically, what he had said was that Germany would be better off having cricket as their national sport. He praised the Nazi regime, particularly in their sports department, if you will. And the one thing about the Nazi Party, which a lot of people kind of may not understand, is that uh, they, at the time in the 1930s, were trying to establish their Aryan race, if you will, or their Nordic race, to different time periods in history and to specific events, say like the Ark of the Covenant. Now, if you guys have seen the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, the narrative of that movie, in fact, is based on actual events in a way. I mean, I know Hollywood goes out of its way to say this is a real story or based on true events, and then they just kind of just, I don't know, destroy any semblance of actual fact. However, in that story, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis actually did go after certain artifacts that could establish their Nazism, if you will, or National Socialism. That's I think maybe the connection there between Fry trying to tell von Rippenhoff that cricket is a purely Nordic sport, or it was invented by the Nazis. We know that's not true at all. Cricket actually goes back to the 1600s, and every country was playing it, even India, and the West Indies. Well, even America was participating in cricket before baseball. The Nazi Party didn't exist until say 1921, and it didn't get into power until 1933, and it was actually done all by vote. So yes, these people were voted in. It took them years, and then they tried to establish themselves going back hundreds, if not thousands, of years, and it was just it was a farce. I'm not a fan of the Nazis. I hate socialism and I hate communism in any form. And I'm not a, I didn't know any of this about Fry before I collected his card. There are cards of Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini, in fact. This wouldn't have stopped me from collecting his card, by the way. And there are connections to card issuing companies and the Nazi regime and Hollywood actors as well, and that's a different story for a different time. But what I thought was kind of interesting too was that Fry was trying to reinvent himself uh, after World War II and during World War II, and the fact that he had made all these statements in his writings, and then he tried to flip them and say, "Hey, listen, guys, I didn't state what I said in the 1930s. That never happened." He basically tried to flip it on its head and say that I did meet with Adolf Hitler and von Ribbentrop, but I was trying to tell him not to invade Great Britain, and it didn't work. And mostly because a lot of these articles don't just disappear. That stuff does follow you, and a lot of uh, information follows you, even on the internet. Nothing is ever gone, right? So if you make statements or write something maybe 10, 15, 20 years prior, it can catch up to you. Whether or not it's correct or not, that's something that society has to look at itself and say, okay, listen, here's the established facts. You can't really flip on a lot of things and not be called out on it by history. The thing is that I could write, and I do write a lot of stuff. It may be current to what is going on when I'm writing it, or it may be about history prior. You can't get rid of history. You can't do it. There's only so much that you can cover up. And this is one of the things that really kind of bothers me about Fry in general. I know he was a member of the parliament. He was a three-time elected member, and he was a publisher of his own magazine and other magazines as well, and that's how he made his living. So he should have known at the time that when you publish something, it can always come back, and it sometimes it can hurt you, sometimes it can help you as well. I think what he should have done, I think what he should have said and done during the 1940s and 50s after World War II was say, yes, I wrote about this stuff, I own it, and I have made corrections and different thoughts about what was going on at the time. He also had some interesting things to say about the Jews and Nazis' policies towards the Jews. I seem to think he may have been indifferent about it, or he just said it's their country's policies and I don't want to get involved. However, the world got involved against Adolf Hitler's policies, and at some point you just got to take a stand and say this stuff is incorrect. This is not how society should function. You know, he was well aware, of, I'm sure, of the concentration camps in the 1940s after World War II, and I'm sure the Nuremberg trials as well. I think maybe it wasn't just America that was involved in the Nuremberg trials. I think Great Britain as well, and he was an astute enough person to and well aware to know that Hitler was not a good dude at all. I have a problem with this man, not as an athlete, but as his thinking, that we knew what the Nazis were doing in the 1930s as well. You know, the FBI was on their tails, if you will, going back to the late 1930s. And, you know, this is just, it's one of the black marks on C.B. Fry's career and his legacy, I think. Uh, do you clear it up? I don't think so. You know, you just have to kind of accept this is who the person was and go on from there. And you know, if you want to collect his cards, fine. I still will. You know, again, I am not C.B. Fry. I don't agree with anything he said about the Nazis or their policies towards Jews, which apparently he didn't have much of a problem with. I have a huge problem with it. I have a huge problem with concentration camps of any kind, even the ones that the United States had for the Japanese during World War II and Manzanar specifically. And that's something that we should never do ever again to anyone. C.B. Fry has a lot to teach us about humanity and not just athletics. He was an amazing athlete and he should be commended for his athleticism. I'm not a fan of what he had said or his associations with the Nazi regime, but I'm still going to collect his cards. And you know, as a reporter, I'm going to share with you guys both of these aspects. That would be irresponsible of me not to tell you. So if you're trying to find CB Fry's cards, they are actually out there. Some of them can be really expensive though. The one that I have here is from 1908, and it is a W.D. and H.O. Wells. It's a Wills Cricketers card, and I'll show you the back of it. In fact, it looks like this, and I know it's blurry. Sorry about that, guys. I'll try to fix that up for you. This actually was, I think, under $10 all said and done, and there is a crease on it, but again, actually, it's right here. It's a little hard to see here, but as I always tell you guys, buy what you can afford, and sometimes a card is so rare that you're gonna have to purchase it when you can, and then maybe upgrade later. Um, this card is not in the greatest of condition. Obviously, rounded corners and a crease and a little bit of an indent at the top here. But I really wanted to add a CB Fry card to my collection because I heard so much about him. now that I know about the guy, I'm not thrilled about his uh, outside activities, uh, outside of his sport, I should say, especially with the Nazi regime are getting so close to them. But I always kind of wondered what he had said privately too. We only kind of know a little bit about him, and the thing is, he had said a lot of this in his autobiography as well, and it is called A Life Worth Living. So I do recommend that too. And I believe there is another uh, book that was written too by Ian Wilton, a biography called King of Sport. And he does actually a really very in-depth, detailed account of CB Fry. And one funny thing too, not funny, haha, but he was married to a woman who scared him to death. And again, I read some of this and I was like, why would you stick with a person that you're afraid of? And then he stuck with her for 40 plus years, I think. If you can't get along with somebody or they scare you to death, just take off, take a hike, divorce. I guess divorce was not in his nature or an option at the time as it is today, but it's a different story for a different time, I guess. So, anyway, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I greatly appreciate it as always. Let me know what you think of CB Fry here. And again, his cards are available. He has a number of them because he played like 20 years as a cricketer. And some of them can be expensive, some can be pretty affordable. As I said, this one was pretty cheap. And I actually kind of like this set. There aren't a whole lot of Hall of Famers in the 1908 set. He's not in the Hall of Fame, by the way, and only speculation as to why. I think maybe it had to do with the relationship that he had with the Nazi Party. But again, that's just speculation on my part. So, guys, again, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. And let me know what you think of CB Fry here in the comments below. And like and subscribe so I can do more of these videos for you and get them out to the universe.